I was going to do a video about the 3 times that I've ridden in an ambulance in my entire life. But I decided that would be too long, and I really don't feel like talking that much. So I decided then I will do a video about my last ambulance ride, okay? So I've ridden in an ambulance 3 times in my life, and I don't know if that's normal, if it's above normal, below normal. I guess it's a good thing the less times you ride in an ambulance, unless you happen to be an EMT or a nurse or a doctor or something that you normally ride in ambulances. So just to give a quick summary, the first time I rode in an ambulance, I was living in Hawaii. Now I was in my early 20s because I had gone to Hawaii to go to graduate school at the University of Hawaii, right? Then I dropped out of graduate school, I got a job, and I was working at this Japanese tour company. And I used to ride my bike to work every day, and one day I'm going down the hill, going to work, and this car just turns right in front of me. I didn't even have time to hit my brakes. I just flew off and right into the windshield. My left shoulder hit, and I broke my collarbone. That was the first time I rode an ambulance. Okay, now the second time was a little more interesting. The second time I was not the victim, the actual, the rider occupant of the ambulance. I was like a go-along. I was like an escort. What happened was, now I'm working at this Japanese tour company, and I was working in these, what they do is the Japanese come, right, and they buy these El Cheapo tour packages. And they herd them on a plane like cattle, then they arrive at the airport, and then they herd them on a bus like cattle. And they drive them around town to kill time because the rooms aren't ready till like 3 in the afternoon, and they arrive from Japan like at 6 in the morning, right? So they drive them around town, sell them souvenirs and crap, and then they drop them off at a hotel, and they go into like one of the ballrooms, and they give this spiel. Someone who works for the tour company gives this spiel. They make it come off like it's some sort of like introduction to Hawaii, but it's really like a sales pitch. They're trying to get you to buy all these different tours, like dinner cruises and jet ski, ocean sports packages, and all kinds of stuff like that you don't really need, So me and this other guy were sitting in the back of the room, and we would just wait till the whole spiel and shtick was over, and the Japanese tourists would come up, and we'd collect the money and give them receipts and all that, and we had to do all the paperwork, okay? Right? So we would just sit there while the woman at the front's giving her sales shtick, and we would just be killing time sitting there waiting. Well, there was a restroom off to the right here, and all of a sudden one of the tourists comes. There's like some kind of a hullabaloo going on, like a commotion in the restroom area. Like, what's going on? So I rush in to the men's restroom, and there's some guy on the floor like going into spasms. He's like freaking. He's having like seizures, right? He's having seizures. So I run back to the desk, and I pick up. There's a house phone. I call the front desk. I'm like, get an ambulance. We need an ambulance back here. Get an ambulance out here. Some guy's freaking. He's having seizures in the bathroom. Okay, so the ambulance comes. Some of the other, I guess he was with some people, I don't know, and they were huddling around him, making sure he was okay. So the ambulance driver comes, and the EMT dudes, and they need to find out what's wrong with this guy, right? Well, the ambulance people, they don't speak Japanese. They're Americans. They don't speak Japanese. Well, at that time, my Japanese was very minimal. I knew how to say like. Put your bags by the door on departure day, Nimotsu wa door no chikaku ni uite kudasai. That kind of stuff, real simple, basic stuff. I didn't know like medical terms, okay? So the ambulance and the EMT guys are like, what's going on? What's wrong with this guy? We got to ask him questions like, has this ever happened before? Has he ever had seizures before? Well, the guy working with me was a young guy about my age, and he was Japanese, right? So his English was about as good as my Japanese, all right? So the customer is talking to the Japanese guy, my coworker, and then my coworker is talking to me in like half English, half Japanese, broken back and forth, like Japanese or something. And then I'm turning and I'm talking to the EMTs in English. And the EMTs were getting all ticked off. They're like, who's interpreting for who here? What the hell's going on? Anyways, we kind of figured out what was happening. And they loaded this guy up into the ambulance, and they said, Dan, you got to go to the hospital with him. And I'm like, what am I going to do, interpret in the hospital? I'm going to tell the doctor the wrong word, and he's going to, like, saw the guy's leg off or something. No, it wasn't his leg, it was arm. I'm sorry, my Japanese isn't very good. So that was the, anyways, he got to the hospital, and one of our, like, VPs went to the hospital, and they all spoke fluent English and Japanese, and they interpreted. And actually, the hospitals in Hawaii do have Japanese-speaking staff, at least, one person, because lots of tourists and all that kind of stuff. So that was number two, okay? That was number two. And now, so the third time I rode in an ambulance, I need water. I'm talking too much here. I get really dry throat when I'm drinking, or when I'm talking. Okay, so anyways, those were the first two ambulance rides, all right? My third one happened just 2 years ago, and it was almost exactly 2 years ago. And I can remember the date. It was September 29th, and today is the, I need my glasses, the 9th? What is it, the 8th? Oh, the 8th, okay? So a little bit less than 2 years ago. Anyways, to give a little background, if you haven't seen my other 500 videos, I have Crohn's disease, okay? But 2 years ago, I didn't know I had Crohn's disease. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was having all kind of gastric issues, gastrointestinal type of stuff. And what happened was I thought, like, I developed a hemorrhoid, right? Because it was literally a pain in the ass. And I thought it's just a hemorrhoid, no big deal. So I was going and buying, like, Preparation H, and over-the-counter stuff, suppositories, and I'm hoping it's going to get better. Well, I'm waiting for it to get better and waiting, and the pain's getting worse and worse, and, like, it didn't get any better, So finally, I waited way too long, and I make an appointment to see my primary care physician. I go in there, and he doesn't have the proper tools and the proper, the knowledge to know what he's looking at. So he kind of just gives me a real quick look over. He says, yeah, you need to see, like a gastrointestinal doctor for that. So you got to make an appointment. And I needed a referral, so I couldn't just go there. So I call, and the gastrointestinal place is like, well, we don't have anything open until next week, Wednesday. Well, this was like a Wednesday when I saw my primary care physician, right? And, okay, well, I go home. He gave me like pain meds or something, like, some extra strength Preparation H cream or something. Well, but as the week goes on, it's getting worse and worse. And by Friday, I call him. I say, I got to come in, like, right now, because it's going to burst, It's the pain is horrible. I was, like, crawling on my hands and knees. That was Pepper. And where was I? So I'm crawling, and I called the doctor. And I called the gastrointestinal place. This is a Friday, right? And I'm like, I gotta come in. This is bad, no one's available today. Maybe we can get you in on Monday. Or if it gets worse, you're gonna have to go to the emergency room. So all right, I hang up. And then the next day I wake up, and I thought, it feels a little bit better. And such an idiot, And of course, it wasn't better. And then by Sunday morning, it was really bad. So I thought I have to go to the hospital. Okay. So, I was in real bad pain. I could barely walk, and I thought, I can't really drive myself to the hospital. I don't want to, like, veer off the road while this, pain's shooting up my back or something, and then get in an accident. I really didn't want to take an ambulance because I thought they would, screw you up the wazoo with the bill, but I thought, I can't help it. I have to take an ambulance. So I call an ambulance, right? So this is Sunday morning. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I figure it's going to be quiet, right? The emergency room's going to be slow. The ambulance will come, like, right away because it's Sunday morning. Everyone's sleeping Sunday morning. All the drunks and the people with guns and stuff, that is all, like, Saturday, and that's done with. That's all over with. It's now Sunday, like 8 in the morning. Nothing's going on. People are going to church. So I call the ambulance, right? Now you gotta understand that the building I live in, it's an old schoolhouse that was converted to condos, like, in the 80s, and the schoolhouse was built, like, in the 20s. So it's this old brick building. It's really nice, got big ceilings, and Thing is, I have my own private entrance in the back of the building, right? Because it was like the main entrance to the back of the building when it was a school. But everybody else uses the front entrance. So I'm always getting in trouble getting packages like UPS and FedEx and stuff. They keep trying to drop it off at the front, but I don't use the front, you know. I always come around to the back and use my private entrance. So I call the ambulance. I call 911, right? I call 911. Yeah, I need an ambulance. No, I'm not dying or anything. I'm not bleeding to death, but I'm like in pain and I can't drive. Yeah, my address is blah, 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 blah street, you know, but tell them they have to go to the back. Go to the back. The rear entrance. I know you see the irony there, don't you? Okay, anyways, I'm like, I said it like 5 times, literally, seriously. I said, go to the rear entrance, the back, private entrance, okay? So this is like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I call, I figure they'd, you know, maybe be there in 15, 20 minutes, you know, half an hour max. I'm getting my stuff ready, and then I'm waiting on the stairway near my entrance so I can see out the door. I have a like glass door so I can see out. That way I'll see him coming. I don't want him like pounding on my door, you know, kicking it in or something, thinking I'm dying. So I'm on the lookout for him, right? I'm like hanging out in the stairway, and I'm in pain. Pain. It's really painful. I need some more water. Okay, so I'm like in pain. Now I'm not dying or anything, but I'm in pain, right? Okay, so 8:15, you know, 8:30. It's not an emergency. This is Rochester. People are getting shot like every other day, so I figured no big deal. All right, but now it's like 8:30, 8:45. Now an hour goes by. It's 9 o'clock, okay? 9 o'clock. I'm getting a little ticked. So I call back 911. I'm like, hey, you know, I called for an ambulance like an hour ago. I'm not dying or anything. I'm not bleeding to death, but they haven't come yet. And the guy's like, okay, let me put you on hold. I'll check out what's going on. So he calls the ambulance place, and this is what he tells me. I swear to God, he said this. He says, well, you know what? They came to get you, but they couldn't find you, so they left. He tells me the ambulance came, they couldn't find me, so they just left. They didn't like call me back. They didn't like look, you know, to see if maybe the entrance was someplace else. So obviously they went to the front entrance, you know. So I'm getting pissed, and I'm chewing out this 911 guy. And I told you, bring him to the back. He said, I'm going to give you the direct number to the ambulance. You call him yourself and give him the instructions on how to get to your place. Okay. He gives me this number, and I dial it, you know, on my cell phone. I get this recording. Like, you cannot call this number directly. It must be like an emergency access only, you know. Like, you cannot just call it from a private citizen. So I call back 911, and I'm like, listen, I called the ambulance, you know, and I can't get through to him and tell him to come to the back, come to the back. So he says, okay, I'm going to tell him to come to the back. So now like 10 minutes goes by, 15, I see an ambulance pull up, you know. So I got my little kit bag with all my toiletries and stuff because I'm prepared to go to the emergency room, you know. And I thought, well, I'll meet him out there. I don't want him to, you know, come to the door and make a big fuss. So I kind of, you know, haunch out there because I'm bent over because the pain is really intense. And I see him, and I'm kind of joking, oh, yeah, you couldn't find the entrance? And they're like, hey, we're looking for some guy in 105. You know, they didn't realize it was me. I'm like, hey, it's me. I'm the guy. You know, I'm the one who called. I didn't even find out what the story was. Like, you know, where you dumbasses go to the front? I told you, go to the back. You know, they were nice enough about it. So they loaded me up in the ambulance, and then they took me to that. Those ambulances are bumpy. It's like they don't have shocks. And you kind of, you know, when you got the pain down there, and every time you like hit a bump, you notice those kind of things. Don't they have shocks? It's like boom every time you hit like a curb or something. Yeah, it was painful. But anyway, so they like took me to the hospital, and then, well, then you know the ambulance ride was over, and then other kind of nasty stuff happened. But that's like a different story. So those are my 3 ambulance drives. I kind of, you know, just did like a summary of the first 2. The second one was actually maybe more interesting. Not the ride itself, but the Japanese customer. He was a young guy too. This young guy, he's in the bathroom and he's having seizures. And you know, the funny thing was, The one thing I remember is he said memai, memai. Well, my Japanese was very rudimentary at that time, and the word for I in Japanese is me, and the word for in front of is mae. So I thought he was saying memai. So I told the EMTs, I think he's seeing spots in front of his eyes, right? Memai. Memai actually means dizzy, okay? He wasn't saying me, my, he was saying memai. He was saying I was dizzy, but anyways, they got it all sorted out. And he was okay, I guess, I think, I don't know. I really didn't, I didn't visit him in the hospital or anything, but that was interesting. Yeah, so, okay, 15 minutes, yeah. All right, those are my 3 ambulance rides.